I ended up taking January off. It wasn't something I intended to do, but it just sort of happened because I got a little bit sick. What is my greeting? What do I do on YouTube again? What's my name? Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you all had just the best holiday season to begin with, and also a lovely January. I'm sorry I disappeared. So what are we doing today? We're going to do Littleland, obviously. I feel like that had to be my next video. Thank you everybody who voted on the poll. That was very cool of you. And I'm thinking that the release order is going to be something like Littleland, maybe another Triple D, Littleland. So Littleland's going to be like the bread in between filling of longer form content. That's my plan anyhow, and I'm hoping to get a 4-day BDL series up and running. I need to go and purchase some things so that I can make the video. I've got another Triple D almost ready to go. There's a couple of bits and pieces that I need to finish up on that one, but you will be getting it very, very soon, I promise. And Pepper's here, and she's beautiful. Goodbye! Please don't squeak your toy, please. So you know the drill by now. I want you to go find somewhere nice and comfortable to go and have a lie down for a little while. Get a storytime companion, get your favourite blankie, maybe have a bottle of something to drink while you're listening, and settle down and let's have a story, okay? Okay, this is Littleland Part 2, Chapter 19. With plates drained and full bellies, the little ones were corralled into the sitting room, which contained a modestly sized playpen with an equally moderate number of toys, most carved from wood. Mabel followed the little ones into the pen and curled up in the centre of the rug, her voluminous tail folding neatly over her front paws. Within moments, Vanessa and Danny lay on their bellies, cautiously petting the cat's soft fur, exchanging grins of delight when Mabel flopped onto her side and purred like a motorboat. Frank began a tower with a set of alphabet blocks with edges worn soft through years of use. Piper, lacking a bear to lounge upon, looked out toward the big folk, 3 of whom were disappearing down the hall, their previously missing companion in tow. "I don't like the look of that," said Piper, sagely, indicating the group when Vanessa turned her head. "Yikes," said Danny, his petting hand coming to a stop. "Poor dude." Mabel chirped and looked up accusingly, and Danny gave her a scratch under the chin. She purred with approval and closed her eyes. "Do you guys think that this is worse than the tree thing?" asked Piper, suddenly. "Huh?" asked Vanessa, tilting her head in confusion. "So, is running away and getting lost in the forest more serious than running away and climbing a tree?" Piper stared thoughtfully down the corridor. "Ah, I get you now," said Danny, straightening to kneel on the rug, tossing Vanessa a glance as he did so. Her cheeks were colouring with the memory of what followed the tree incident. "I mean, yeah, probably," said Danny, scratching the back of his neck. "There's more than just one tree out there." "I don't know," offered Frank, not looking up from his tower or responding to Danny's terrible joke. "Alright, so it's more dangerous to climb a tree than it is to just go into the woods, right? So isn't that what they've all got a concern boner about? Like, you can't do X because it's too dangerous?" Before Mickey could open his mouth to address that last remark, Danny did it for him. "You seriously don't want to get your mouth washed out, dude. I can still taste it. You know that soup we had for lunch? Smelled delicious, right? No, it tasted like roses." Frank looked up from his towel with a little snort of laughter. "It's true, though," Vanessa said, softly. "That's what Miss Mia's always saying, anyway." "What, that she has a concern, but I can ignore it once, little guy. I can't ignore it twice," said Mickey, mildly. "Probably wouldn't finish that sentence, hey?" "Sorry," mumbled Frank. "I won't, but it's pretty dangerous in the forest. It's huge," said Vanessa. "And this is the second time he's run off," Danny pointed out. "Wait, no, the first time wasn't his fault," said Vanessa, her brow crumpling with concern. Danny shrugged. "Still did it though, like, pretty sure they'd take that into account." And why did 3 of them go in there with him? Asked Vanessa. I tried to answer this question before we even got to the cabin. I think they all have a claim, said Piper impatiently. Wait, how does the doctor have a claim? Asked Danny, sitting back on his heels. Miss Emily definitely, and I can even see Ethan having one, but the doctor wasn't even there. Well, yeah, I wanted to riddle that out together, but Ethan threatened to spank me in the forest, so I dropped it. Little Pip, keep going, and I'll spank you in the forest, came a voice from behind her. Piper sank to a seat when she saw who the voice belonged to. Papa Tom radiated comfort and understanding, as well as a warm dominance that firmly compelled most every little one to behave. As far as she knew, Piper was the only guest in the park's history to have tested that dominance. As a result, she was the only guest in the park's history to have had her tail warmed by him, and she was in no way eager to repeat that experience. She closed her mouth, as did Vanessa when she noticed her caregiver enter the room, drying her hands on her skirt. Little ones, said Papa Tom, addressing the group. Would you like it if you found out your wee pals were gossiping about you behind your back? Oof, muttered Danny. What was that, little one? My ears aren't what they used to be. Oof, Danny repeated, louder this time. No, I wouldn't like it. Me either, whispered Vanessa, looking ashen-faced. Tom took his seat, a large overstuffed recliner, and righted his spectacles. So, instead of telling stories, why don't you come over and listen to one for a while? The group scooted forward, displaying various levels of shame and interest on their individual faces. Now, as I recall, this tale takes place on a Wednesday. No, a Tuesday, perhaps? Oh, no, my mistake. It was indeed a Wednesday. Now I know it was a Wednesday because I'd take the trolley, you see, which would only run on Wednesdays. Aiden James Phillips looked on with envy as he was shepherded down the hall, away from his friends. Envy wasn't something he often struggled with, but at that moment it coursed through him. He'd much rather be back with the rest of the group, petting Mabel and playing with toys. Instead, he was walking to his doom with an admittedly strange assortment of caregivers. He found himself wondering why Dr. Gilbert had chosen to accompany them, but his thoughts were interrupted with the heavy thud of a closing door. They were in yet another one of the stark rooms that Aiden was now unfortunately familiar with. Like the others in the big cabin and the main house back in town, it only contained a couch, a side table, and a box of tissues. Aiden was unsurprised to discover that the small cabin also contained a room built for handling discipline. At this point in his stay, Aiden would have been surprised to discover the opposite. The caregivers sat on the couch, Ethan perching on an arm. Miss Emily folded her hands neatly in her lap, and the doctor folded his across his chest. Oh God, were they all gonna spank him at once? Pass him from lap to lap like a box of popcorn in a theatre? As comfortable as Aiden had begun to feel in the park, he felt that experiencing 3 simultaneous spankings would be more than he could handle. The soup in his stomach felt heavy, and he shifted from foot to foot. Now then, said Miss Emily, looking uncertain. Come over here, sweetheart. It suddenly occurred to Aiden that he was standing at the opposite side of the room, next to the doorway. He crept forward, feeling uncharacteristically shy. Let's have a bit of a chat. Shall we, little lad? Asked Ethan, and Aiden nodded woodenly. Okay, he all but squeaked. He felt naked standing before the big folk, who all wore similar expressions of displeasure, mild as they may be. Why do you think you're here? Asked the doctor, in his stern baritone. I could ask you the same question, Aiden thought. He also thought better of verbalizing that particular query, though, and pondered a response. I wandered away. You did, Miss Emily agreed. You walked off into the forest. And do you think that's something a little boy should do? Asked Dr. Gilbert, peering at the freckled charge over the top of his glasses. Glasses. Oh my goodness. The day the earth stood still, my glasses were within arm's reach. What? Do you think that's something a little boy should do? Asked Dr. Gilbert, peering at the freckled charge over the top of his glasses. Aiden reflected upon his nappy rash, the angry guilt that swelled through him, and the fear he'd experienced in the woods. Definitely not, he said, solemnly. So, why did you? Asked Ethan, in a tone that wasn't unkind. I kept seeing a flash of colour, so I followed it. I thought I could find out what it was before he trailed off, realizing that the sentence he was preparing to speak would only compound the trouble he was facing, before anyone noticed. He finished, reasoning that there was little point in delaying the inevitable. So you didn't intend to tell me fibs, then? Ethan asked, leaning forward. Huh? Fibs? Asked Aiden, legitimately confused, his stomach gurgling with tense anxiety. Remember, when you got off the sled, I asked where you were headed, and you pointed to the others. Oh, the little boy sighed. I really was gonna go over there. Uh-huh. Just after you finished up this business with the flash of colour? Aiden simply scuffed his foot. Things that seem like they're technically not a lie share most of the same properties as lies, little boy, said Ethan. Why did you tell me a fib? Aiden knew the answer, but the line of questioning was making him squirm. He almost couldn't bear the level of scrutiny he was currently under, but Aiden was determined to behave. This would be the last spanking he would earn, he decided. No more running away, no more stupid mistakes, and no more spankings. Because you would have said no. And I think you might know why we would have said that, sweetheart. Emily spoke up, extending Aiden a hand, which he took gratefully. Because it's dangerous. Very dangerous. Dr. Gilbert agreed. Asked Aiden, giving Miss Emily's hand an anxious squeeze. We've discussed it, sweetheart, said Miss Emily, squeezing back. And we've decided that since you disobeyed all three of us, and since it's the second time you've run off, we'll all be seeing to your discipline. 3 spankings, stammered Aiden, in an attempt to absorb this deeply unwelcome information. I'm gonna have no butt left after 3 spankings. Emily giggled softly. Oh, honey, not quite, she said, patting his hand. Pepper really likes the Miss Emily voice. Only 2. I'm pretty bad at math, but I can count to 3. Well, we're gonna try something different this time, said Miss Emily. You've been over my knee a few times, sweetheart, and I've spanked you for running away before. It feels like a spanking on its own hasn't helped that lesson sink in any. So we've decided to mix things up a little bit for part of your discipline. But you'll still be receiving a spanking from me, I'm afraid, Sweet Pea. A serious one, and from me, the doctor finished, causing Aiden's already broiling stomach to flip anew. A spanking from Dr. Gilbert felt like a death sentence. Sure, everyone else had already survived a discipline session with the park's medical officer, but at that moment, Aiden had only experienced what he now suspected had been a very mild spanking from his caregiver, the human sunflower, as Piper put it. He didn't want to be anywhere near the doctor's lap. He didn't feel it fair. Okay, I have to ask, and I'm sorry if I sound rude, I promise I'm not trying to be, but why have I earned a spanking from you? Asked Aiden. I only disobeyed 2 of you. Do you recall my words to you after the tree incident, little man? With respect, Doctor? I don't even remember what I had for dinner last night. Wait, stew. It was stew. Bad example. I said, if I have to have this conversation about climbing trees or running off with you ever again, you have my promise that you will not sit for 3 days. The doctor gave Aiden an apologetic smile. And a promise is a promise, little boy. Though he marveled at the technology required to create them, Part of Aiden cursed these androids and their flawless memory banks. But Yes, little one? The doctor asked, patiently. Nah, I didn't really have a follow-up, the little boy mumbled in response. I thought maybe I'd come up with something on the fly. The caregivers shared a look of muted amusement amongst themselves. And, asked Dr. Gilbert, did you? No, the little boy admitted. I don't have any defense for what I did. I know I shouldn't have done it, but I did it anyway. Aiden, eyes downcast, gave a little shrug. And so, said Miss Emily, in a tone so gentle Aiden immediately relaxed for a moment. I'll be spanking you tonight. Miss Emily finished, prompting the boy's muscles to once again clench with anxiety. At the very least, he reasoned, the imminent threat of a spanking from the park's doctor was put off for at least a day. You'll have a day's break so your bottom can heal, and then you'll receive your spanking from me. Embarrassingly, his backside tingled at the news. Hayden was grateful for the day's break. That was kind, at least. Not as kind as not spanking him at all, but nevertheless. Oh, thanks, said Aiden bravely. For the break, I don't think I could. Yeah, Aiden trailed off. You're very welcome, little man. And for the part of the discipline that I'm responsible for. Until both spankings are over, began Ethan, and the doctor handed over a black leather case that Aiden hadn't even registered until that very moment. You'll be wearing these. From the bag, Ethan produced a jumble of blue leather straps that immediately sent Aiden's heart down into his toes. No, please, begged Aiden, his eyes widening. Not reins. Yes, reins, I'm afraid, said Ethan. I won't be able to go anywhere. And I think that would be the goal, lad, said Ethan, busily detangling the ball of straps. Please, not reins, Aiden whined again. Anything. I'd even be popcorn. He can even spank me twice. Just anything but reins. I'm sorry, honey, if you can't prove that you can be a big boy. Wait. I'm sorry, Em, but wait. Popcorn? Asked Ethan, suppressing a chuckle. Aiden's entire face blushed a furious red. Miss Emily tilted her head in amusement, and the doctor raised a brow. It was just... don't worry about it. Miss Emily chuckled and drew the reddening boy close, running a hand through his windswept hair. Aiden buried his face in her jumper, and she spoke to him softly. You had a chance to prove that you were a big boy who could stay with the group, sweetheart, but you ran away instead. I think you've proven you need reins to keep you safe, honey. Just for a few days. Do you disagree? Asked the doctor, knowing full well what Aiden's answer was going to be. After a long, laboured sigh, the little boy lifted his head. No, I know I've done something to deserve them. I just really don't want to. Oh no, poor Aiden. Poor buddy. Well, he did something naughty and dangerous. He's gotta have some consequences. Sorry, bud. I mean, I could have written it so that he didn't have consequences, but where would the fun be in that? Goodness, I guess it's my fault. I'm so mean to the characters. If only they would behave. Any hoozles, thank you for listening to today's episode of Littleland. I hoped that you had a nice time. I had a pretty nice time. I hope that where you are today, the weather is absolutely perfect. And if it's not, I hope you have the perfect jumper or blanket or, I don't know, breathable crop top to help with the weather not being perfect. And I hope you remembered to bring an umbrella. Okay, bye everybody.